Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming to Arts and Craft Chica. My name is Mirelis. Today we will be creating a tropical mural that's three-dimensional, made of joint compound, also known as plaster or drywall. If you are here for the first time, welcome. This channel is for everyone who loves creativity, crafting, painting, sculpting, and many other things. I create videos with step-by-step instructions for everyone to follow along. Before we get started, I do have to give a special shout out to the El Paso Recruiting Company and to all of those individuals who have supported me by liking and subscribing to my channel. I appreciate you guys. So after tracing the image on the wall with the light box, we begin working on each individual petal as you see here. Using the back of the spatula, you scoop out a small amount of plaster, then place the edge of the spatula on the wall and begin spreading out the plaster in different directions to fill inside the line, making sure the plaster is securely adhered to the wall. This will provide a sound foundation. After placing some of the plaster down, we're going to cut out a small piece of concrete tape that's the shape of the petal, and you put it on the plaster. This will help to provide height and help the petal pop out of the foundation of the project. After you blend the concrete tape and you add additional layer to cover the tape, you continue to spread the plaster until you have a uniform height. Then run the back of the spatula along the edge of the petal to help create the elongated shape of a real petal. Due to the sticky consistency of the plaster, you may want to spray on water to the top of the plaster that you've already placed on the wall, and you're gonna dip your spatula in clean water and clean the spatula, and take the spatula and run it along the edge of the petal. This gives you a clean finish to the shape. Please understand that in order to create a three-dimensional look to your flower, we have to make sure that the petals overlap each other in different depth and height. Therefore, the petals in the back require less plaster than those petals who are closer to the center of the flower, exactly how this flower would be created in real life. As you can see, some petals have more plaster on the edges. This is to begin creating the canoe effect of the petal growing out of the center of the flower. Understand that the further the petal moves from the center of the flower, the more the petal opens, just like a real flower would. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget, please hit like and subscribe. I really appreciate your support. When it came time for me to work on the palm leaves, I used a total of 2 layers on the top left and the bottom palm leaf. But to create the effect of the top right leaf sitting in front of that leaf that's on the left, I had to add an additional layer of plaster to create the effect. Alright, so here's a real-time shot of what we have so far, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. It's turning out pretty smooth. I like the canoe effect on a lot of the petals, and everything is looking great. Alright, so let's move on with more layering. Continue on the same process as before. The only difference is you no longer need to add any more concrete tape. Due to the weight of plaster, you have to approach this in phases by applying plaster and waiting for each layer to dry. As you can see, I'm starting to add a little bit more of plaster to the edge of the petal, and what this is doing is starting to create that canoe effect that's going to give the petal a more realistic and natural look. Okay, and we continue on with the same process. And don't forget, once you are satisfied with the amount of plaster you put down, then you take the brush, you dip it in a lot of water, and you brush it back and forth to achieve this perfect, smooth surface that you are looking for. Okay, so update is I'm pretty satisfied with what I'm seeing so far, and now it's time to create the folding and the opening of each petal. Paying close attention to the petals that are closest to the center of the flower. And in order to make this happen, we're going to need a product that we can manipulate into any shape that we want. And this is where Plaster of Paris comes in. But before we continue on, let's make ourselves a rosebud and jasmine cup of tea. Okay, now we are definitely ready to continue on. But we're gonna go ahead and do this one right here. That one right there and here. So let me show you how this gets mixed. And also, you may want to have plenty of water with you. So I have this bucket of water that's I use to wash my hands with. This is the brush you see me using constantly. And a mixing bowl, and the reason why I'm not using plastic is because plastic, the product sticks to plastic just too much, and it doesn't stick to glass. Fresh water, Plaster of Paris, and all your mixing tools. So work in very small batches and small amount of plaster, because this stuff dries extremely fast. The more you start to stir this thing, the quicker it's going to harden on you. But with what we're doing, we have to find a balance between mixing it well but not stirring it too much. But you'll get the hang of it. If you feel it's not working, then just throw it away and start another batch. But gotta get rid of all these pieces of dry plaster in here, because it's impossible to work with that. Okay, must have been some dry plaster inside the container. All right, let's put some more. All right, so here we go. Let's get some more. And continue stirring. All right, give it a second. So take a separate bowl and just add some regular plaster, and we're gonna use it like flour because this stuff is extremely sticky. So I'll show you what it is that I do to avoid it from sticking too much to your hands. That way you can work with it better. All right. So this is still a bit too wet, but that's okay. Grab it and put it in here. Move it around and create a coating on the outside. And clean your hands. All right, perfect. So this is what you're gonna do. Gonna manipulate it into something long. Gonna take your water spray that you see me using, and I do this so make sure that it does stick to what's already there. And here we go. And grab a lot of water because this stuff will start sticking to your fingers. With the water, you're able to manipulate it better. That. It's actually a pretty versatile product once you get the hang of it. There's so much you can do with it, but it takes some getting used to. Once you got it, then very easy and manageable. All right, here we go. Wash your hands. Work a little bit fast because it does start to dry on you very quickly. And as you can see it, we're trying to make this one here. So it's a bit flat, but don't worry if you don't get it right 100% because later on you're going to come with the sandpaper. You're going to sand it down to the exact design that you are looking to do. And let me open it up a little bit more. Okay. And don't let it dry on you. Take more water. You can also use a spray and spray down with water and continue working. But this is it. And as you can see, it's starting to harden already. If you walk away from this, you can betcha that it'll be way too hard for you to do anything with it. Alright, here it is. Alright, this one hardened already because my camera fell. But that's okay. We're gonna make it happen. Bottom part. Okay, excess. Throw that out. Water. Wet your hands. And spray a lot of water. Okay. And you start playing with it. Here it goes. If you love working with your hands, this is definitely going to be a fun project for you.
make sure it adheres to the entire structure. So you want to make sure that you blend it perfectly in there. That way this thing doesn't fall off on you when it comes time for you to start sanding it down. Okay. Now, cannot reach that little spot right there. That's fine. You're gonna come. And we're gonna take the brush with some water. Ladies and gentlemen, you got yourself a beautiful looking petal. Let's fix this one. So we got so much material on it.
Okay, now that you know exactly how to do it, let's continue on. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to click like and subscribe. I will be putting out more videos in the near future. So I took a step back and realized that the back petals required a little bit more plaster to give them more height and stand out more. So that's what I'm doing right here. And as I said before, continue with the same technique of dipping your brush into a little bit of water and brushing the top of the petal, as you see here, to achieve that very smooth consistency. Here you see me adding some Plaster of Paris and creating a small petal because I felt that there was too much space there and I wasn't comfortable with that much space. And then after that, I continue adding more height to the back petal. But I just want to say that at the end of the day, this is your creation, this is your art, this is your fantasy. Do it whichever way you want. If the petals are too thin, you want to make them thicker, go ahead. If you want to point them to the left, up, down, left or right, sure, go ahead and do that. Again, this is your space. Have fun, enjoy yourself. Trust me, it's going to look fabulous. And if you are enjoying the video, hit like and consider supporting my channel by subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. Now that we are completely done with the Plaster of Paris and we're satisfied with the look, depth and height of each petal, it's time to smooth out the inside of each petal. So in order for us to smooth out the folding of the sides of the petal, we're going to take some plaster, put it in a cup and add water. And you want to create sort of a runny pancake-like consistency. Take the 2-inch tip and spoon some of the plaster to the inside of the petal. And gently you're going to smooth outward the batter. Don't use too much pressure. You want to keep the depth while you're smoothing the edges of the petal. And also put some of the plaster on the outside like I'm doing here. This will create a beautiful definition to the petal. Okay, after you cover everything, you're gonna take again your brush with a lot of water and you're gonna brush it gently, creating and smoothing out the depth and the folding of the edge of the petal and on the sides to create more definition to the petal. This will look fabulous when it's dry and it will avoid a lot of sanding later on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with using all of the plasters. I am completely satisfied with how this has turned out. Now it's time to add the lines of each petal. So now it comes time to work on the lines in the back petals, and I went to Harbor Freight and I purchased this tool you see. It was like $10, but honestly it wasn't even worth using it. It caused too much dust in my living room. And then I discovered the most incredible thing. I was having a hard time. Like I said, this is hardened tremendously, but I realized something. When you wet this, it softens enough for me to carve it very easily, as you can see. Super easily, as opposed to going in here and trying extremely hard to get as much of it as possible to achieve the design that I'm going for. But now all you have to do is just wet it with a little bit of water using a brush, and it softens the product enough for you to carve it super fast and easy. So that's what we will be doing. All right, just wanted to point that out. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this discovery was a game changer because I was using so much elbow grease with the chisel to try to carve out those lines and clean the outside of each petal and dig into the center of the petal just to create a little bit more depth. And it was honestly, it wasn't working. The plaster just hardens too much, especially the plaster of Paris. But thank God, for some reason, I brushed a couple of drops of water just to see what would happen. And this plaster turns into mush. So yes, thank God I figured this out. So it turned out to be a pleasant discovery. So like I said, after putting some water, take your chisel and carve out the lines. Also go to the sides of the petal and clean them out. If you clean out the edges of the petal and you create more of that fine edge, it just looks beautiful. So do one or two and take a step back and take a look at it and get the hang of it. And if for some reason you make a mistake, who cares? You go ahead and you put plaster over it, you wait for the plaster to dry, and you do it again. There really is no way you can make any permanent mistakes in this thing. Also, I went ahead and purchased this clay ribbon sculpting tool that you see me using. It's like a little long stick with a loop. And this is to remove any bumps that you may have. If you follow the instructions and you smooth out the top with the brush and water technique, you won't even have to use this tool. But I put it in the description in case you want to give it a try. So here is where I added that additional layer of plastic to the top right leaf, and that's to create the look of that leaf sitting in front of the left leaf. So using a pencil, I sketched the vein on each stalk of the leaf. With a brush, I wet the surface, following the line that I created with a pencil. Using the chisel tip, I etched from the center, following up the stem of the stalk, as you see me doing here. What I'm trying to do is create a 3D convex appearance to each stalk of the leaf. So you create the look of the top right leaf back facing forward by not creating a stem. As you see me doing here, I'm going up and down, and not creating a stem in the middle. Okay, and continue this process until you have finished with the entire leaf. Alright, we go to the left side of the leaf and continue the same thing. Follow your lines, etch to create that 3D convex appearance to the stalk. Now that we're on the left leaf, this left leaf front is facing forward, so you do have to create a stem in the middle. So after drawing all of your details with the pencil and all of your lines, then you come with a chisel and you gently chisel as I'm doing here, and don't touch the middle. Create a long line for the stem and leave that alone, and try not to wet it too much, because remember, this is going to be very gentle once it's wet. But there you go, you chisel in, and the more you chisel downward, like I'm doing here, the more you are going to expose your stem. After I was done doing all the carving and the chiseling, I let it dry, and I took sandpaper and I sanded down and I smoothed all of the details, and I took my vacuum cleaner, as you see here, and I vacuumed all the dust that was falling, because I didn't want any dust in my living room, and I was not using a mask. So if you feel you don't want this stuff on you, make sure you use a mask. Here I took a little bit of joint compound plaster with some water, and I brushed it on to help me get rid of all the little imperfections and avoid so much sanding. Alright, now it's time to work on the bottom leaf, and the same thing, pencil on your details, take your chisel, and you are going to etch all of your details. Please make sure you do not touch the middle. Leave a line straight down for your stem and start digging in. Over here, a little bit of the plaster fell off because I added too much water, but I came later on and I fixed it by adding more plaster.
Look at my angel, you guys. Isn't it perfect? It's gorgeous. Snout.
Okay, now to create the unopened buds, I think that's what it's called, in the center of the flower, we're going to take Plaster of Paris to a Play-Doh consistency, turn that into little balls, we put some plaster down, and use the plaster as the glue for each individual round bud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here comes what I think is the best part of this whole thing, and that is painting your piece. So I took the buttercream and the ivory and I mixed it together to the correct cream yellow that I was satisfied with, and I painted all of the petals. Then I took some brown with white and a lot of water and mixed that in, and I took the brush and I painted inside each of the lines and the shaded parts of the petal. I painted on the outside, around the petals, inside, in that canoe area that we keep talking about. And what this is going to do is going to create shadows. The more shadows you create, the more contrast you will see, and the more of that 3D effect will show on your piece. And when you're using this watered down brown paint, you're gonna come with a cloth, as you see me here, and you're gonna wipe the excess. And if you feel you wipe too much, then you do it again. And take a step back and look at it and make sure you're satisfied with what's going on. But again, there's really no mistakes you can make here, because if anything, all you can do is just paint it over and start again. All right, now we're moving on to the leaf, and the same thing. You're going to first add your buttercream and ivory tone, and then you're going to come with your watery brown, and you're going to paint inside those carved lines that you created and in the stem. And once again, in order to create the effect of the right leaf sitting in front of the left leaf, you have to add a lot of shadow where the two leaves meet, right there. And the more shadow, the more contrast, the more that 3D effect will be in place. Now we're going to work on the bottom leaf. Following the same instructions as the top, focus on the lines that you created with that watery brown, and then the shadowing where the leaf meets the petals to make that area pop even more, constantly wiping and adjusting your colors and your shadowing and the contrast as you go along. And take a step back, take a look at it, and wipe again if you're not happy, and then come again and do it until you're completely satisfied. All right, so let the piece dry for a few hours, and next you are going to take a big brush that's very dry, and you're going to put some white paint and remove the excess paint. And back and forth without pressing or pushing too much on the brush, you are going to start highlighting the elevated areas of your piece and focusing on the edge of the petals and on the elevated parts of the leaf. Again, don't press down too hard, just back and forth. And what this is going to do is going to make your piece pop even more. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished our piece, and this thing is absolutely gorgeous. I wish you could see it in person. The video, I don't think, really captures how pretty and amazing and stunning this thing is when you walk into my house. I sure hope you make one of these in your own home and get creative and use other types of design. But this one I chose because I thought was the easiest one. And let me know in the comments if you are going to do one in your home and what color you are planning to use. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I will be making more projects in the near future, And thank you so much for watching. Now stay tuned for the light box. And until next time, take care. Bye. Okay, we're going to work on the light box, also known as a projector. So you're going to take a simple plastic laminating sheet and you're going to split it in two. And then you're going to trace whatever image you want. In this case, I chose a flower. And I went online and I found some palm leaves that I added to the flower. Now take the box and you cut out a square section. And you take the laminate and you tape it to the box. You flip the box over and you open a window in the back, and that's going to be for your light source. And in this case, I chose my phone and I took wire that I had laying around and I wired the phone down. You're welcome to tape it down. Then you take the box, you flip it over and you face the light to the location where you will be tracing the image. Adjust your image any which way you want, and here you have yourself an awesome light box.